Ensuring your feet are warm in extremely cold conditions like this is essential to ensuring your survivability. Welcome back to Mission Ready Society. I'm your host, Orrin Price, and in today's video, we're talking about proper foot layering and boot selection. Alright, so to start this video off, before we start talking about socks or we start talking about boots, I want to discuss a little bit about the science behind why cold feet can affect you while you're out in the wilderness. So obviously, besides the obvious reasons that having cold feet just sucks in general, it slows down your mobility, makes the rest of you extremely cold, and just all around sucks. Besides that, the reason that having cold feet tends to make the rest of your body feel cold is a principle known as thermoregulation. Basically, when you're outside and it's cold, and maybe you're not layered properly, or your feet are wet, or for something that's causing your feet to be extremely cold. Basically what happens is the blood vessels inside your feet constrict, reducing the blood flow to your feet, which obviously makes them colder because there's not as much blood going to them, right? But the reason our bodies do this is because of a survival mechanism. Essentially, the body will constrict the blood vessels in our extremities, so like our hands, our arms, our feet, our legs, because it's trying to keep all of our vital organs in our torso, trying to keep all of our vital organs in our torso, warm, right? So it's kind of a survival mechanism that our body just does instinctively. So being able to keep your feet and your hands warm are extremely important for not only comfortability, but survivability as well. All right, so the next thing we're going to talk about is sock selection. Now there's 50 billion, different kinds of socks that you can choose from, but there's some types of socks that you really want to look for when it comes to cold weather. I got a bunch of different socks I'm going to go through and talk about. Some that obviously you don't want to wear, and then types of socks that are good for cold weather. So the first sock is an obvious example of something you wouldn't want to wear. Now this is just like an ankle sock, for like dress shoes or whatever. Obviously it's very thin and it only covers like your toes basically, right? So obviously not something you'd want to wear in extreme cold because this is going to do nothing for you. So those can just go away. The next type of sock is another example of something that you wouldn't want to wear, right? Now, this is just like an everyday sock that, you might wear every day. But the thing about this is that this is made out of cotton, right? And the thing about cotton is there's a saying, obviously some of you may have heard it, some of you may not have, but cotton kills. And essentially what that means is cotton is not moisture wicking, meaning the water, like if it gets wet, it retains that water, it doesn't evaporate it away from your skin, or whatever, you have it on. So basically in a cold environment, a sock like this that's made out of cotton is going to make your feet even more cold if it gets wet. And that goes for sweating as well, right? Like your feet can get wet beyond just sticking them in water or falling in water. Sweat is going to saturate this as well, and cause it to, stay wet. Therefore, your feet are just going to be even more cold. So this is another example of something you don't want to wear when it's cold outside. The next thing we're going to go through is this. Kind of similar to the sock we just looked at, except this is made out of a synthetic material, right? So it's like a polyester, And the thing about this is that the synthetic or the polyester material is going to be moisture wicking. So if this gets wet, obviously it's going to take a little bit of time, but it's not going to retain that water. It's going to allow that water to evaporate and wick away from your skin, which will keep your feet, warmer than obviously wearing a cotton sock will. Now this sock is obviously a lighter sock, right? So for like extremely cold temps, like, below freezing, stuff like that, this alone is probably not going to be sufficient unless you're doing like heavy amounts of moving, right? Like if you're hiking or you're moving nonstop, something like this might be suitable. However, if you're going to be, still and not moving a ton, this is not going to be sufficient enough, and your feet are still going to end up being cold. So this is kind of your step one, your level one kind of sock that you can use for when it's cold outside. All right, so the next type of sock we're going to talk about is essentially the same thing we just looked at. This is another synthetic sock, except the thing about this is it's thicker than the last one, right? So it has all those same properties of, moisture wicking, stuff like that, except it's just slightly thicker. So again, this isn't something I would wear if I was going to be sitting still for long periods of time, but this might be something good for like when you're moving again. These are actually socks that I wear like when I'm out hunting and, I'm hiking around a mountain, stuff like that, just because they're breathable and they're thick enough to where they'll keep my feet warm. So that is, another step up from the last pair that we looked at. Now we're moving into colder type weather. This is, again, synthetic, made out of polyester. This is actually a ski sock or snowboarding, whatever you might do. I snowboard personally, so I wear these when I'm, out snowboarding on the mountain. These are, again, a thicker sock than the previous ones we looked at, and they're longer, right? So these are going to go up your legs further to keep your legs, your calves, and stuff like that warm. Now, since these are thicker, you don't need to be moving as frequently to keep your feet warm and stuff like that. So that's why I wear these. That's why I wear these snowboarding, is because like snowboarding, you're moving a lot, obviously, but you're not moving as much as you would be as if you were like hiking or something like that. So these are a great sock for, stuff like that. And again, they're thicker, yet they're still a synthetic material, polyester, moisture wicking, all that good stuff. All right, here's where we step it up a little bit. These next two socks we're looking at, and the last two socks, are what's known as merino wool. Now, essentially, merino wool is a material that is, it's extremely warm for its weight, and it's also good at wicking away moisture. So these socks are, even though the sock is, thinner than some of the last ones we looked at, it's still extremely warm because it's made out of merino wool. Merino wool is great for pretty much all activities, and it's actually what I suggest for when you're looking for socks for cold weather. There is, obviously there's other materials, like we talked about synthetic socks, but merino wool is kind of the top of the top, right, when it comes to materials for keeping your feet warm, but also wicking away moisture. So basically, this sock, like I said, is a good kind of all-around sock for doing outdoor activities when it's cold out. The thing about this sock specifically is it's still, thinner compared to some of the other ones. So this is going to be good for, moderately cold, but it's not like extreme cold. But yeah, again, it has all of those properties we're looking for, specifically moisture wicking and, insulating, right? So that brings us to the last one I have for today. Again, like I said, there's 50 billion different socks out there. This is another merino wool sock, except it's a thicker material. It's a lot thicker than that last one we looked at. This is a medium weight sock. So again, there's even thicker ones than this out there, but it's the same type of deal. It's made out of merino wool, you know, moisture wicking, insulating, stuff like that. This would be a good sock for when it's colder out, obviously. And yeah, this is there's two brands that, you know, I like personally, and you know, obviously there's other brands out there, but my two favorite is Darn Tough and Smart Wool. Those are two great brands for socks. Granted, you know, they're a little bit on the pricey end, but they last you a long time, and you know, they're great for all sorts of different activities. They have tons of selection and stuff like that. Obviously I don't have any affiliation with them because my channel's super small. Maybe one day, we'll see. But for now, I don't. So I'm just giving them a shout out because I like them. But yeah, this sock is seen a lot, but it's still, you know, in great condition, still works well. Yeah, so that brings us into the next kind of thing. Now, the next thing we're going to talk about in today's video is boots. Now, since I'm kind of gearing this more towards the tactical side of thing, these boots that I'm going to show go along those lines. So again, like socks, you know, there's 50 billion different pairs of boots to select from, but I'm focusing on more of a specific type today. So the first pair we have here are a pair of mid-ankle or mid-height boots. Now, I'm gonna set one of these down. These boots, yes, they're brand new, but these are great for maybe when it's not like super cold out, although they can be worn in situations where it is cold. The thing about these are waterproof, so that is a great benefit and added feature, is having boots that are waterproof, again, to keep your feet dry and keep them just that much warmer. These are well insulated as well. Again, just adding that extra warming layer. And yeah, the downfall about these, of course, is they're not as high as some of the other boots, so you run the risk of getting snow down inside, which defeats the purpose of them being waterproof. However, what you can wear with these is you can wear yourself a pair of gaiters to kind of go around to help keep that snow out. Yeah, those are just some options. I got these specifically for hiking and stuff like that. Again, they're waterproof. Making sure you have a pair of boots that are waterproof just allow for that you know, ease of mind, knowing that you have that extra protective layer for keeping your feet dry. Now, if I was to choose this boot for a specific purpose related to cold weather, I would use this boot specifically for days where, you know, maybe I'm not dredging through insanely deep snow, stuff like that. Maybe I just, you know, am walking long distances, but I want to keep my feet warm and I want to keep my feet dry. That's a kind of scenario that I would use these in. And kind of going along with the fact, like I said, I'm gearing this more towards the tactical side of things. Making sure you have yourself a pair of boots that are going to allow for easy mobility is something that you want, right? So these boots aren't insanely heavy, they're not clunky, they're going to allow you to move easily without slowing you down. That is the first type of boot I have today. All right, so the second pair of boots I have today are a pair of just kind of normal combat boots, right? Now, some of you might be like, oh, well, you know, these aren't going to help keep your feet warm because they're not insulated and stuff like that. That is true. However, I want to show these for a very specific reason, and that has to do with movement and mobility. These are just a pair of Garmont's great standard combat tactical boots, right? Obviously, the thing about these are not waterproof. They are not insulated. Therefore, by themselves, if you're just, stagnant and you're not moving around a lot, these are not going to keep your feet warm whatsoever. The nice part about these, though, is they are breathable. Therefore, if you're moving, long distances, you're doing strenuous activities, or anything of that sort, these are going to be great because they'll allow your feet to breathe, which is necessary for, not letting that sweat build up and accumulate and soaking your socks. So these boots, you could use them in the snow, right? They're water resistant. They're not waterproof. So it'll take a little while for the snow to start seeping through and stuff like that. However, you just, you got to be conscious about the fact that they're not waterproof. So you don't want to be just, walking through streams and stuff like that because your feet will get wet. Now, however, though, like I said, if you're going to be doing long movements, strenuous activities, stuff like that, I would suggest having a pair of boots like this and pairing it with maybe a thicker pair of socks if it is colder out. And that's going to allow your feet to stay dry because you're not going to be sweating excessively, and they'll be staying warm. That blood will be circulating because you're moving so frequently. So if I was to choose these boots for a specific reason, it would be because I'm going to be, moving long distances, doing very strenuous activities. I don't want my feet to be saturated in sweat, stuff like that. I would choose a pair of boots like this. That way my feet can, wick away that moisture. All right, so the last pair of boots I have for today's video are probably what I would suggest, and I would say are probably the best for when it comes to tactical scenarios and cold and snow. And that is a pair of Gore-Tex combat boots. Now, these Gore-Tex combat boots are like a standard pair of combat boots, except they are insulated. As you can see here on the inside, they're insulated, and they're Gore-Tex, meaning that they are also waterproof. Now, there are some sacrifices, and that is that they are slightly heavier than a normal pair of combat boots. So you sacrifice, some mobility, but I wouldn't say that you sacrifice a ton, enough where it's going to, compromise your ability. Now, these boots are extremely nice for when it's cold because they're insulated. They keep your feet warmer, and they're Gore-Tex, so they're waterproof again. So they're going to keep that, moisture, that wetness out, which are both properties that we're looking for. Now, these are kind of just a generic pair of Gore-Tex boots. Obviously, there's other brands out there that make other boots that are similar to this, that are probably lighter than these ones. But yeah, I would just, do some research and stuff like that. But I would definitely suggest picking up a pair of these if you're, in a climate where it's cold, or you're gonna be in a climate where it's cold, and you want to, still have that mobility and stuff like that. These boots are great for when it's cold. I've worn these specifically probably down to like 0 degrees Fahrenheit, and stuff like that. And my feet have stayed nice and warm. Again, I would pair this with a nice pair of warm socks, like merino wool socks, like we talked about earlier in this video, and stuff like that. If I was going to choose these boots for a specific reason, it would be because it's going to be, decently cold out. I'm going to be dredging through snow, stuff like that. These are going to be a perfect pair of boots to do all of that. So that's what I would choose these for specifically. And those are the 3 boots I have to show in today's video. Again, like I said, there's tons of different options out there. There's tons of different brands out there. Of course, these are more geared towards the tactical side of things. But if you're looking for more into like hiking, mountaineering, stuff like that, there's a whole realm of different boots that are meant for just that kind of stuff, or meant for like extreme cold, like sub-zero temperatures, stuff like that. But yeah, again, this is more towards the tactical side of things, so that's why I'm showcasing these 3 pair of boots. And again, if I was, going to find myself in a pretty cold environment where there's lots of snow and stuff like that, I would go with those insulated Gore-Tex pair of boots. With that all being said, that moves us into the next segment of today's video. All right, so for the last section of today's video, we're going to kind of be piecing, it all together. And we're going to kind of just talk about, layering strategies for your feet and kind of what to do to piece it all together. Now, as you can see here, I have just a pair of those thin synthetic socks that I showed earlier. This is going to be a nice base layer. Now, again, if I'm doing, frequent amount of moving, going long distances, stuff like that, where it's not like extreme cold, I'd be okay with just wearing these and a pair of boots to match the situation. Now, if it's warmer out, however, what you can do is you can take yourself a nice thin pair of liner socks, right? And you can pair it with a thicker merino wool insulating sock. So here I have one of those merino wool socks that I had showed earlier as well. And literally all you're gonna do is you can just take it and put it directly over top of this sock. Okay, now once you have the sock on, there's a few important things to note. You can cause the sock to be too tight, right? So if you're wearing too many layers, too many socks, that is bad, because what that's going to do is it's going to cut off circulation to your foot. Now this sock is quite tight, not extremely tight though. It's not cutting off my circulation, still allowing good mobility of the foot and good blood flow. So again, now I have 2 pairs of socks on, my foot is nice and warm. And now for this demonstration, I just am using these regular pair of combat boots that I showed earlier. I'm gonna slip these on, and now I have that on. Now, the thing to note again too is you can, obviously you can cause these to be too tight as well, right? So we want to make sure our laces are not extremely tight, and you want to make sure that when you have multiple layers of socks on, when you slip your foot into that boot, it's also not compressing your foot, cutting off that circulation. So now what I'll do is I'll just tie this boot up real quickly. What I like to do is I like to take the laces and tuck them inside the boot like so, just so they're up out of the way. And of course it's kind of a habit too, getting them out of the way, making it look nice, stuff like that. Okay, now that you have this, what you're going to want to do from this step that I would suggest is taking your sock and folding it over the edge of your boot like so, right? And now what that's going to allow it to do is, granted, it'll do it anyways, but it kind of helps a little bit. If you do have moisture, like from your feet sweating, right, this allows that moisture to kind of come up the sock and wick away, right? This is kind of acting as like a wick on, I don't know, like a tiki torch, we'll say, right? Like it soaks up that fluid and it slowly climbs its way up until it reaches the top. Well, that's what this is doing. And then it's letting that moisture wick away from the body. So that's kind of a strategy that I would do. And now this is kind of something that I would have, this is what I would have going for if it was cold out. Again, if it was extremely cold, I'd have on a thicker boot, stuff like that. Probably different sock setup as well. But yeah, that's kind of how you piece it together. And now my feet are nice and warm. I can go outside, I can spend a long time out there and keep my feet nice and warm. Well, that's all I have for today. So thank you for watching. I hope that you enjoyed it. If you did enjoy it, consider leaving a like. And if you want to see future content like this, consider subscribing. Now, at the time of recording this video, the channel is currently sitting at 99 subscribers, 1 subscriber away from 100. And I just want to take this moment to thank each and every one of you for supporting me in this journey so far. The channel is a little over a year old now. And yeah, I've enjoyed my time so far and I plan to keep going. So yeah, I just want to say thank you to everybody that has supported me in the beginning of my journey till now and in the future to come. So yeah, just thank you for that, and I really appreciate it. But yeah, I hope that you enjoyed this video today. But with all that being said, I'll see you in the next one.